welcome to our show this morning. I hope everybody out there is doing well. We got a lot to talk about. It's the first anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, an important date. So we're going to dig into that. Um, and then, the Communist Party, USA, for the we got a lot of great ideas. And one of them has been shortening the work week, 35 hours for 40 hours pay. Guess what they did in Europe? They instituted in several countries in the European Union what was it, 30, 35-hour work week, 4-day work week. And it is slamming, and everybody's excited, and the morale has improved, and we're going to be talking about that as well. Um, Thirdly, uh, Representative Green from the great state of Georgia has made a not so great proposal that the blue states and the red states, racism and anti-racism, democracy, anti-democracy, however you want, white supremacy, and however you want to define, should divorce. I don't know what that really means. And then finally, we'll be addressing our mailbag. So let us get started. First anniversary of the war, Rosanna, seems no closer to ending than just after it began. What's it going to take to bring about peace, in your opinion? Rosanna?
We have, well, we have to build a strong peace movement, and not worry about taking sides, but concentrate on calling for peace, demanding that peaceful solution that Biden speak and work towards a peaceful solution instead of sending them a bunch more money and all of those kinds of things. But let's pressure him to call for peace, on both countries. I think
We,
that's what we have to do.
we need a much bigger, much broader, much more powerful peace movement. And right now it's fragmented and confined to narrow circles. And in a few months, the party is going to hold a meeting of peace activists. We got about 300 or 400 around the country to discuss what will it take to help revitalize and rebuild the peace movement and bring into it, uh, forces that have either traditionally not been included or excluded, either by design or by accident. And because that's what it's going to take I'm talking about trade unions, churches, synagogues, mosques, community organizations of women, LGBTQ, ordinary, working class folk who have, all of us of whom have an interest in surviving. Scott, Rosanna's right. It's going to take a big peace movement in this country to bring pressure to bear on the administration, which seems uh, keen to push the position for a military defeat of Russia. And in response, Putin gave a speech. There were dueling speeches, actually, one by Mr. Biden, the other by Mr. Putin. And Putin, in his speech, indicated he's going to pull out of the last nuclear agreement between the United States and Russia. Um, no, what do you think the effect of that will be?
I think that any step back uh, from these nuclear arms control treaties is a bad thing. Um, the threat of nuclear war is too kind of horrifying to imagine, and um, you know they're these people are playing with fire, and it's obvious that you know we need to be forthright about the fact that the United States government and NATO are ceaselessly um, fueling the flames, provoking violence. But this is also, Putin uh, is not, an innocent victim either. We need peace. We need a solution that expresses some modicum of care for the vast majority of the people of this planet who would be the losers in any nuclear war. This isn't a question of, as Rosanna said, of taking sides at all. It's a question of what can we do here in this country right now to secure a decent future for for the people of this planet. A nuclear war is something that cannot be allowed to happen.
Cannot be allowed to happen. I wish they would show that movie that they showed back in the day after. You remember that, Anita? The day
Mm.
I
after
do.
a nuclear,
Mhm.
because the people don't like really comprehend the absolute devastation that a nuclear, even limited so-called use of battlefield nuclear weapons would be a terrible, terrible disaster and difficult to contain. And uh, there have been threats. We might even use nuclear weapons, Mr. Putin said. And China this morning, Anita, put
Mm.
forward a 12-point position paper um, on the conflict in Europe, Ukraine, on the invasion, calling for, among other things, one, respecting the sovereignty of all countries, two, abandoning the Cold War mentality. Glad they called for that, and military blocs, a ceasefire, and the threat of the use of nuclear weapons. Do you think that the Chinese position, Anita, is a viable path forward?
I certainly do, Joe, and you're right. We used to call that thinking the unthinkable about the outcome of a nuclear proliferation and conflict. I think we really need this peace conference that's coming up to really set ourselves on a good road. I mean, I think the communist plus here that we have to offer is an analysis of who's profiting from the war in Ukraine, who's suffering. I mean, there's suffering going on all around the world as a result of this conflict. And China, Brazil, other countries are stepping up and saying, we need a peaceful solution. We need to work towards a political solution to this. And the United States doesn't seem to be on board with that at all. And I don't know what Biden is using this for, but it's not good. But I think when you think about the $50 billion that we've already spent, if that money had been able to be available to meet human needs, it would have gone very, very far. So I really think we ought to join with China and respect what they're saying on paper instead of accusing them of having a hidden agenda, which is what the Secretary of State did this past week. So, there are forces for peace in the world. The strategy of trying to isolate Putin has not worked. He still has a lot of partners around the world. We can't go with that strategy anymore. We really need to get everybody sitting down at the table and talking.
We
That's
don't like. Go ahead, Scott.
That's the part of the tragedy of this whole war is that when the current president of Ukraine, Zelensky, was elected, his platform was peace, and the massive electoral victory that brought him into office was a mandate for peace, and there were concrete steps toward peace between Ukraine and Russia, toward a peaceful settlement of the situation in the autonomous, the Donbass region, toward economic cooperation, and that's something that was just unacceptable to NATO, and especially to U.S. fossil fuel corporations, who are desperate to keep Russia out of the European energy market. So everything possible was done to sabotage those steps toward peace. And that rhetoric has continued and that strategy has continued right up to now with, you know, the reaction to in the U.S. to China's calls for a ceasefire and for negotiations, with I believe Blinken saying, this is not the right time for peace. Effectively, like we need to, we've got Russia on the ropes. We need to keep pressing. So
All day, every day is the time for peace, and all of those things that you just described, Scott, that don't justify the invasion, though. I
no,
mean, it don't.
not for a second. But it was you know, decades of provocations by NATO gave Putin an opportunity to, to step into a trap, basically. And I think that's what happened. It was a provocation that he took the bait, and here
Well,
we are.
part of the trap was in his own mind, because remember, a few months later, he said, "There's really no such thing as Ukraine, y'all. It's all part of Russia. This was some phony thing that Lenin devised in order to settle
And
the
then he
national."
started talking the nonsense about, oh, the West doesn't understand that whole concept of like a conflict between the West and 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 Russia, is whoever's mouth it comes out of. It's kind of nonsense, I think.
That's some of that Alexander Dugin talking. I want to restate, Rosanna, the Communist Party's position at the National Committee meeting just recently with respect to the war and how to end it, just in case anybody has any illusions or misconceptions about where we stand. Our position has been to oppose and condemn the invasion, call for a ceasefire immediately and negotiations. We said at the NC, Russia must return to its borders, and Ukraine has the right to national sovereignty. And finally, last but not least, maybe you put it at the front row, Rosanna, NATO must stop its expansionist efforts. I mean, they got the goddamn country surrounded. Rosanna, that's what we said at the National Committee meeting, and I think we should stick to it.
I agree. Most definitely. Yes.
Let's move the discussion.
Yep.
Other things are happening in Europe. 4-day work week. I said at the top of this program, Anita, you know, our party is a party of advanced ideas, and
Absolutely.
huh?
I said absolutely.
A
Yes.
long time ago, we called for a 35-hour work week with no cut in pay, you know. And in Europe, they just adopted it in well, the countries didn't adopt it. A
No.
number of corporations, businesses experimented with it. And 90% of them are going to maintain the program. Why is a shorter work week with no cut in pay a good thing?
Well, Joe, it's a great thing. Every worker needs that extra day of the week to take care of the other matters of life, that we need to take care of, our children, our interactions with other organizations and so forth. The increase in worker productivity in this country over the last 40 years has been enormous. And yet workers don't seem to be enjoying the benefits of that. And I think this 4-day work week, there's been a lot of, not everybody has a 35 or 40-hour or 5-day a week work week right now. And workers having a little more control over their scheduling is a great thing. And I will say the 4-day work week doesn't have quite the poetic resonance that our 2019 resolution that we passed at our convention did, and that was a 6-hour day, no cut and
No
pay.
cut and pay.
It rhymes, but 4-day week will do too.
6 hour day, no cut and pay. Put that previous slide back up so we can see it again. Scott, 78% of the people said the workers said they were happier. 62% said healthier. Is that healthier? And 70% less nervous, not
Yeah.
so stressed out. Don't
And
need to
I think
take.
that's just in basic practical terms. Overworked people do not work well. And you see this kind of everywhere. Like beyond a certain point, there's like not only diminishing productivity returns on, forcing people to work more, but also rapidly escalating kind of, physical and emotional costs on the workers. So this is it's not some crazy utopian idea. Nobody wants to work, whatever. No, workers want, like this is actually a particular frustration of mine with this line you hear all the time. Oh, nobody wants to work anymore. No, everybody wants to work. That's like the most basic part of being human, the desire to participate in consciously transforming the world around us. Like it's what makes us human. It's just that our society under capitalism is so poorly set up to develop and use and build on that basic human drive. So instead of uh, making work a source of fulfillment for the people doing it, it has to be a source of profit. So any step toward giving workers more control over and more satisfaction in uh, the job that they're doing is a good thing.
Make the corporations pay, Rosanna. I mean, in this country, you got people working 2, 3 jobs just in order to make ends meet. You know, you work 8 hours and then you take a couple and you work 4 more and then you work, and because the rent's too damn high. I don't know how much it costs in LA, but it's sure expensive in New York City. And even I saw an ad in Youngstown the other day. A friend of mine said, a house 2 blocks from where I grew up in the heart of the ghetto, $100,000 for the house. And my father's house, 10,000. I don't know who the heck they expect to. But Rosanna, do you think that the Chamber of Commerce and the boards of trade and Wall Street are going to go for a 4-day work week or 6 hour day with no cut and pay, 35-hour
Well,
work? Huh?
I mean, they will if they see a profit that they can gain, and or the people demand it. The people organize and demand it. That's the only 2 ways that they'll go for it.
Anita, the nature of work is changing, though. I mean, you got the introduction of new technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence. I go to the supermarket now, and the cashiers are gone mostly. They got 1, 2 cashiers with workers behind them, but they got 30 that are just robots. And so that's one part of it. The other part of it has been the effect of the pandemic. And a lot of people are working from home now, and home work is becoming a much more. Do you think that this will motivate the employers to embrace more flexible forms of work management?
Well, it really depends on the industry, I think, Joe, because I mean, I know a lot of people who are working 4-day weeks right now, but they're 12-hour days. So a lot of, a lot of companies have flexible hours or changeable hours, but I think workers in this environment of a relatively low unemployment rate, we have a little bit more power to make demands, and a flexible work schedule is so much more humane for people who have families and other obligations in society. And also remote work is so possible now and so productive. Actually, all the studies show that working at home is just as productive as going to the office. So I think, or not every job can be like that. I think the nature of work today is so variable, from the service industry through information technology and so forth. It is always changing, and but I think we do have an opportunity to make demands at this point that we might not have had before.
Rosanna, we don't live to work. We work in order to live. And we want to have a good life. We want to be able to do more than type on the computer or control the boiler house in a steel mill or put a part on an assembly line in an auto plant. And because what's the point of living if you're only, living for the boss? You know, I want to live for my partner. I want to live for my children. I want to live to make art or make music or just do nothing.
Yeah.
I like doing nothing.
8 hours for what we will. And the
I-
other thing that's interesting about this is it shows we always talk about the division in the capitalist class. And so you see these firms in Europe going to 4-hour work weeks, trying to experiment with ways of making workers more satisfied, less stressed, whatever. On the other side, to address the so-called worker shortage in the United States, you have Republican legislatures in several states rolling back laws against child labor and trying to bring more children into the workforce. Rather than trying to make work more tolerable for people, we're going to they're going to lean in hard on that, economic coercion and try to get, go back to child labor. The days when you had 9-10-year-olds in mines and mills. It's disgraceful.
I'd like a 35-hour work week in the Communist Party, Rosanna.
No such
No such
thing.
thing.
No such thing, more like 60, 70. But it's a labor of love. It's a labor.
Exactly.
It's a
Exactly.
labor of love. Speaking of love, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican right-wing legislator, member of Congress,
It's the third guy.
with her AK or AR-15 or whatever that is, she ain't got no love for democracy. She said that there should be a divorce, Anita.
I know.
Blue states and the red states should agree to disagree. And do you think there might be some legitimacy to her proposal?
I wish I lived in a blue state sometimes myself, and thought about moving, but I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is taking up far too much oxygen in political discourse environment right now. She's apparently angling to be Trump's running mate in 2024, and she seems to have taken on his modus operandi of just saying the most outrageous things she can imagine, so that even on a CPUSA podcast, she might be discussed. So she's in the news. That's where she wants to be, and yeah, she'll say something next outrageous. That's all it is. It's just a publicity thing for her, I think.
But if it was just confined to one person, it would be one thing. But it's not. because Rosanna, she's speaking on behalf of a trend, of a tendency. There are these people are Confederates. Scott likes to call them neo-Confederates. They supported slavery. They supported Jefferson Davis and when you saw those good old boys on January, that's what they're about. Um, they want to they keep talking about a new civil war. You know, we're going to take over the country. We're going to get rid of all of these, all that QAnon nonsense. These woke people, these LGBTQ people are trying to impose their orientation on children. The Black Lives Matter people don't want to work, and I'm gonna stop with the cliches before I get in trouble. And that's what they believe, and they have this uh, dream of a white republic. That's what they're
Well,
angling for.
it's only a dream. I mean, it's clearly not thought through. Financially, how are they going to support those states? How are they going to move people out? What are they going to move? It's just an impossible kind of thing to think that they can clean out those states of everybody, and I mean, it's gonna stay pretty empty. But it's an impossible dream. It's just propaganda trying to appease some of the people that are frustrated with the economy and all of these kinds of things, and misguide them into thinking that that's the solution to the problems, and it's not the solution to the problems. They're the problem. It's their attitude. It's their legislation that's the problem, not the other way around.
They're dreaming the impossible dream, Scott.
Yeah, it's um, even the idea of divorce, like it's ridiculous. If we think back historically to the long period in which slave states and free states tried to coexist in the United States, it didn't work because eventually, as everyone came to realize, the slave states would have to impose their rules on the free states through the Fugitive Slave Act, for example, where the forces of public order in free states would be kind of conscripted into rounding up people who had escaped enslavement in enslaved states. And it's not about separation for them. It's about control of all of it. And Rosanna is right. They are the problem, and you know we need to rise as a nation, a multiracial, multinational, in fact, democracy, and put this neo-Confederate reactionary bullshit well behind us.
It has to be put down, Scott, as you like to say. It has to be decisively
Dismantled.
defeated, and that's more than a political question. It's also a battle of ideas, as Rosanna likes to say. It's also about economics and providing everybody with a viable way of life and income. Um, and it's also about morality and respecting everybody's right to human dignity and to the orientations and choices that they have. You know, we have one working class in this country, not two, not three. One country. A civil war was fought over that. And but the battle and the underlying issues have not gone away. Which brings us to our last question, mailbag. We got a how are you going to make the change question. And it reads Karl Marx was famously pro gun. Why does the CPUSA support gun control. A true socialist party wouldn't want to disarm the workers, Anita.
Well, I don't think there's a one true socialist party, just like as I grew up Catholic, there isn't a one true church. Of course, I think you pointed out, Joe, that Karl Marx, we don't treat Karl Marx's writings as scripture. Not everything he said has to be followed. And I have a sociology background, and I see gun ownership as a public health hazard. And right now we have a suicide rate in this country that's going up fast. And that's what I think is at the heart of the mass killings that we're seeing. Those are suicides that have, from people who are so angry, they're ready to take others with them. And I think that's the real problem here. If you have a gun in the house, you're much more likely, it's much more likely to have that kind of an outcome. So I think I'm for gun. I mean, I don't think we take a strong position of this in our party, but I personally am for common sense gun laws. I think to have I understand having guns, having been around bears, but I don't think guns need to be turned on to other human beings.
You could also use bear spray. they,
True.
they,
Well, yeah.
they have bear spray. Scott, you're a true socialist, communist kind of fella.
Uh,
Karl Marx
yeah.
was
So
infamously pro-gun. Why y'all
so
supporting this?
Karl Marx in 1848 in the manifesto wrote that um, the workers in Germany must not allow themselves to be disarmed. We have to think about that in terms of what was being demanded, right? There was a potential for revolution. Workers didn't have, at that point, the right to vote. And even in the very rare cases where they, got it shortly after that, it took a long time to learn to use it, right? So organized armed insurrection was a main political weapon of revolution. That's no longer the case. The material conditions are different. The disparity of the level of armed force that could be brought to bear by the capitalist class and by the working class is so vast that it no longer makes sense. Right now, the main political weapon of the working class is, in the first place, the ballot box, and in the second, the streets. Or in the first, the streets, and in the second, the ballot box, whatever relation you want to put them in. Mass demonstrations and voting. And running for office, the political process. Those are the main weapons right now. And one of our great leaders, Henry Winston, had a beautiful way of approaching this question, the question of revolutionary violence. Is violence necessary for a revolution? And he said, our task is to prevent the capitalist class from imposing violence on the revolutionary process. We want a peaceful transition to socialism. We will organize for the most peaceful transition to socialism. Violence is the weapon of the capitalist class, and the stronger we are, the more united we are, the less chance that they will be able to impose their violence upon it.
Rosanna, this is a really loaded question, don't you think?
It is.
There are all
Yes.
kinds of assumptions in this question. That gun control means taking away everybody's pistol or
Right.
rifle, rifle, and all of that. It's really kind of a dishonest framing of it, don't you think?
It really is. I was looking at if we support gun control, not this, not everybody give up their guns kind of a thing. We understand there's people who are, they're hunters and like Nanita said, there's bears. You can also use pots and pans, but nonetheless, it is a loaded question. Um, we're not about disarming workers in the sense of taking their guns if that's a hobby of theirs or if it's for hunting. But Scott is right. We want a peaceful transition, and those that are going to cause the violence are going to be the capitalist. We are in a period in our history, our human development, that it's the battle of ideas that's going to solidify the strength of the movement that's going to bring about this change. It's being able to withstand these provocations by the right of violence, these provocations of any kind of disunity and all of that. What's going to give us that strength is to fully understand that we can win this battle, and we can win it by staying united and not allowing any kind of infiltration or sowing of mistrust amongst each other.
We do not want to disarm nobody. I'm going to say it again. We're not in favor of disarming the working class. By the way, the working class is already armed.
Yeah.
Where I got from, they got more guns than you can shake 2 sticks at, 3 sticks. And but we feel that the social revolution, one of our main tasks is to prevent, as Scott said, the ruling class from imposing violence. And there is a lesson to be taken from the civil rights movement in this country, a powerful lesson, and from the union movements about how to conduct struggles in such a way that are militant, that are aggressive, that are in your face, but that are tactical, and that result in winning over majorities of people in support of your cause. And that's what we have to do. We have to build a mass party. We have to win over a majority of the working class. And we have to use every tool in the toolbox in order to make that happen. Strikes, boycotts, occupations, and yes, the vote. Good morning, Revolution, everybody. We'll be back next week on Friday. Until then, don't watch Marjorie Taylor Greene. Take her off your
That's
screen.
better, that's better.
Replace it with a nice cat in the meadow, tiptoeing through the tulip, or the dandelion in this case. Take care, stay strong, stay safe, and stay in the fight. See you next week.
Later,
Bye.
Bye,
comrades.
everybody.